Heyo folks, it's that time again for another episode of Reading Your Comments. As is tradition at this point, every episode will start production for every 100k views we hit. At the moment, it'll be a safe range for those who want to leave comments with the chance of having yours found and read, and it gives me more of a chance to gather some variety in the comments that end up selected. Speaking of which, for those who do want a higher chance to get chosen in later episodes, you should note I tend to get whatever comments I, 1, can make some kind of actual response to, like something I can have some kind of interaction with, be it legit or funny. And 2, comments I'm able to find on different videos, not just the Scooby-Doo rankings. I like to give some attention to those who are sticking around for more than just those kinds of videos. You know, those who might want to give me more of a chance outside of those bigger works. It also helps give more variety to my material and to those who've been sticking around for more than just the big crowd videos. You can consider this as a bit of a thanks to those kinds of people, as well as a thanks to those who've been leaving comments anyway, regardless of whether or not they're compliments, criticisms, suggestions, or just basic jabs to yank my chain. So anyway, we've got plenty of comments to choose from. Let's see which one we'll start off with. Death came for an egotistical little legend, yet he didn't see him at the end anymore. Because Puss had more to live for than keeping his legend alive. He had Kitty Softpaws, Perito, and potentially Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey. If they were alive by the time the last wish happens, even though there's proof that Shrek is still around.
Out of here! This is my swamp!
Good memories are why he knew what he had to do. Wow. Already we're off to a pretty strong start. I may have had quite a handful of thoughts on death in that movie, and yet I still feel like I haven't given him enough credit. This comment right here is a pretty solid sample that shows how much thought was put into death, and pretty much a lot of the other characters in this movie. I really hope you do the Scooby-Doo show, or what's new for your next ranking. You should do this for the Be Cool Scooby-Doo monsters. Please do guess who, Scooby-Doo? Whoa, calm down, fellas. Sure, I had a good time with the Mystery Incorporated ranking, and I do intend to cover some of the other shows too, but you must understand, I can't go through all these videos at such a scale just like that. The Mystery Incorporated ranking alone was a huge example of obstacles that can occur during production. It took so long to get done and had so much going into it. I had to watch every episode of the show for starters, and sometimes I had to rewatch episodes. Then find time to write out and record segments for each villain, decide on where each villain should be placed, and really think about which ones I liked more than some others. And given the heft of a project like that, I ended up going to multiple editors to help out. And of course I went to Gia for the thumbnail for that ranking, and she did a great job as always. But here's the kicker. Even if I had all the time in the world, these factors still cost money. And as much as I hate to bring it up, I'm not exactly in the best financial state for big projects like that at the moment. Which ties back to the ranking. The production was a much bigger task than you might have realized. It took almost 3 years to get that whole thing finished. And if things stay as they currently are, then it might take another 3 years, or maybe even more, to get the next Scooby-Doo ranking finished. And that's assuming nothing goes horribly wrong in my life to leave an unfortunate dent on the production, or if nothing goes horribly wrong on the production itself. Which is still sort of likely to happen either way. But I can imagine a lot of you would certainly not want to end up waiting that long, so if there's one thing you guys can do if you really want to help boost the production on those projects a little, I recently got a Patreon and a Ko-fi, and I'm also eligible for channel members now. So any pledges, donations, and joining as a member can greatly help me and everyone else involved in these videos. And once we start making enough, the Scooby-Doo rankings are more likely to come back around. Or, you know, maybe sharing these around can help too. There's likely to be someone you fellas might know who might be interested enough to throw some smackaroos my way to help make more videos happen. I just saw season 3, and oh my god! Nunion, if you haven't watched it, well, you're missing out. The bad news is that there's only 8 episodes. For context, that was from my Hilda video, so I should say that no, I haven't seen the 3rd season yet. So no heavy spoilers if you fellas can help it. And I have been intending to start writing out a new video for that season once I finally get around to sitting down and watching it. Because, like I said before, if nothing else, I would love to see where the story goes after we were given that Mountain King movie. Though there are still a few issues along the way, with one of them being time. I've got a lot more on my plate than I would have expected even a week ago, and 2, these videos, again, take money to get done like this. And I'm still trying to find a new workplace to make up for that, But you guys can help me out by supporting me in some of these different ways. And the third reason is that, well, I'm a little hesitant on certain projects. I'm sure we all know by now how unforgiving the copyright system can be sometimes, and I painfully learned that from my Hilda video. And plain and simple, I just want these videos to not end up going through problems like these. But don't worry, I definitely still have the intention to get a separate video done for the newer Hilda season. But even still, it might take a bit longer, at least until we find out what this new announcement ends up being. I, like many others, don't know what it's about yet, but I hope it ends up being something good. Since you were talking about the voice actors, I thought I would throw out the fun fact that Alice May is voiced by Hilda, who voices Princess Bubblegum and Starfire. You know, looking back on the voice acting spotlights I gave back in that video, I do kinda wish I added her to all that. I'll admit I did find her performance for Starfire pretty charming as a kid. But as for Princess Bubblegum, this might sound shocking, but I never really saw Adventure Time through a majority of that video's production. In fact, I didn't really have the motivation until I heard it was coming back for that Fiona and Cake show. So I actually took the time to sit through that whole thing, and man, what a journey! Some of you might know more recently that I and some others behind the scenes started up production for an Adventure Time retrospective, though it's gonna take some time to finish as we're still in the early stages of it. But those who really want to see the first part of it can see it now through these different ways. Okay, I'm sorry, that's the last time I'll plug them anymore. For the time being, at least. Just a shout out to you, I liked the movie you did on Rankin Bass. I love those films. Here's some other films from them you could cover in either a follow-up to that video or in a video covering them all. Oh my goodness. I had no idea there were that many. And to think a lot of us knew only about their Christmas work for a while. And yeah, I did say I'd get around to making another video based on the Rankin Bass legacy at some point, but dang. Looking through a lot of these now, I feel I might have to go for some more specific varieties that have a bit more of a limit on whatever my next Rankin Bass topic ends up being. But just so that video doesn't end up being too long, and even still, I'll have to go by the movies I know and the movies I have yet to see. Like, I remember watching Flight of Dragons as a kid, which I had no idea was a Rankin Bass product until only a few years ago, so maybe I could cover some of their 2D non-Christmas animated works. I don't know just yet. I'll have to make more time to figure that out. How have you only watched it now? For context, that was from my Amphibia video. And like I said in that video, it was that coworker from my old workplace that got me to give the show more of a chance. Since before all that, I wasn't really expecting the show would have that much going for it. I just assumed it was gonna be nothing more than just a mid-show filled with anthropomorphic frogs doing stupid things with no reason given, and maybe even making gross-out jokes. But then when that coworker found my YouTube page and saw through my videos, she was telling me how I had to get a video made for Amphibia. Or at least give the show a try. And so at the end of the day, I surprisingly did end up liking it enough to get a video made for it. Though I wouldn't say the show was as amazing or as beautiful as the next guy, but I still liked it. I'm glad the coworker talked me into watching it, and I'm glad I took the time to watch it. I don't know if that coworker still watches my videos, but in case he's still here, thanks for suggesting the show and leading me through this experience. So hopefully that answers your question. Poopy dog? Interesting choice of username? The thumbnail looks phenomenal! It's super clean and eye-catching. They've all been good, really. I hope this video blows up, man. You deserve it. Same! Yeah, I had a pretty good time with that video too. And since we're talking about it, let's go check it out right now, see how it's been doing. Oh, what? It was one of the lowest performing videos from last year? Man, that's a shame. I had a really good time writing for that. Well, I guess there's always a chance for a comeback, so for anyone who's a fan of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, we have a video where I go into it, so feel free to check it out if you'd like. And then maybe as time goes on, we can see it blow up like a lot of the others we have here. Dude, these are children's movies! Your views and opinions are your own, but sharing hate on Christmas movies? Absolute yuck! Most of these were done in the 60s! EMOJIS! Wow, okay, I don't really know what to make of this. I mean, yeah, obviously, this is supposed to be a form of negativity coming from Sasslass here, but she does acknowledge opinions, so that is nice on her end. But overall, I guess she was trying to make a criticism on my old Rankin Bass video, which I can kinda understand, as I myself feel a bit of cringe looking back on it, and admittedly, my thoughts on some of those movies did change a little over time. But the thing is, she's not really specifying what can be fixed there. And this comment just mostly comes off sounding like he's saying I should be ashamed for making this video in the first place, or something like that. Which I kinda hope is not the case, as there are a handful of other fellas around here who've had negative things to say on movies related to all our claims. Be it 60s movies, kid movies, Christmas movies, you name it. There's plenty of others who've had something they didn't like about these and have been open about it. So I'm not entirely special in that regard. And with that in mind, I hope she's not going around blasting these kind of rants directly to all those other people, especially if it's going to be in this kind of structure. Otherwise, people might start coming to some unfortunate assumptions about her. And look, I'm not trying to say that as a threat. I myself speak from experience. This kind of stuff happened to me a few times as a kid, and it led to a lot of regret on my end. And even in recent years, I've had this kind of thing happen in scattered scenarios with a few different levels based on the outcome. This just shows there are times you may not know how to say your piece and it'll just end up leading to a mess from different potential directions. Most likely from your own perspective, and this might come from possible embarrassment. It's stuff like this is why we should all be careful about how we word our statements to prevent stuff like this from happening. But anyway, that is my TED Talk. Moving on. Good video. I hope we get book 5 one day. Book 4 introduced so many interesting things I want to see get expanded on. Oh god, so do I, mate. Like, I had no idea I was gonna get so invested in that show at the time. And I know I've gone into my beef on this last time, but man, I'm still pissed with Zaslav for his harsh treatment toward Infinity Train, as well as the WB company in general, but this show's treatment has gotta be one of his biggest oof moments. There's no denying that show was certainly one of the biggest highlights we've gotten from Cartoon Network in recent years. It had a lot more writing on it than most of their other shows at the time. And yet, they just threw it all away, with little to no resources for future generations to experience it. Like, seriously, what could be more depressing than that? But mind you, that's not to say that all hope is lost, at least just yet. I'm sure by now we all know about Owen Dennis being given another chance through a different show, and yeah, I brought this up last time too, but I have developed some thoughts on it since then. On one hand, I can understand why most people might have concerns about this, as it's, well, you know. And yeah, it may not be that easy to see it lasting long, but then again, there have been a load of surprising outcomes from different animated projects over the years. And at the moment, who's to say this is doomed to be an exception? Keep in mind, this is the Infinity Train guy we're talking about, and if they allow it, he might have ended up taking some ideas he never got to unveil from that show, and slipping them into this show. Sure, the outcome might still sound quite ridiculous when you remember those would all be set to that. But despite everything, I'm willing to stay open-minded until we finally get to see what exactly they've been cooking with this concept this whole time. As by then, I'm sure I and the rest of us will have fair verdicts once this finally comes out. Or so I hope. Alright, well, I filled enough comments for now. Thanks to everyone who left all your comments to make this series happen in the first place. Thanks to Ninja Haku for the thumbnail of this episode, and thanks to newcomer GeekTunes for putting this all together, and for putting up with me in general. You did a great job, mate. So I saw recently that we hit another view milestone, and unfortunately I didn't have the time to get another episode written and recorded for the mark. So I'm sorry for completely missing that. Maybe I'll come up with something to make up for that at a later point. I didn't really have anything planned out that far ahead, but like I always say at the end of these videos, we'll soon see, won't we?